Herm Gailey, here to do some bad riding. Now, folks who know me might say, well, we don't need to look at a video to see bad riding. We've been seeing that from you for 30 years. Hopefully not too many people will say that. What I want to emphasize here today is the effect that improper riding has on your horse's response. One of the things that I see again and again among folks who are having difficulties with their horses is that they are given unintended cues. They don't have their body control of themselves. So how can you hope to have body control of your horse? So we'll see people doing things that send a mixed signal or an unintentional signal to their horse, and their horse will do one of two things. A well-trained horse, maybe one that they just got, they haven't affected yet, will respond to what the horse thinks they're asking for. Other horses who are more tolerant will begin to ignore those meaningless cues. The problem is that just paves the way for the horse to ignore absolutely every cue they give, whether it's meant to have a meaning or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk first about basically correct riding. Please understand that I am not by any means holding myself out to be a paragon of perfect riding. That is not the case. But I would claim to be a reasonably effective, functional rider who doesn't get in the way of his horse, who doesn't send a mixed signal, and who doesn't interfere with his horse's ability to do what's to the best of the horse's ability. So, watch. Two things that differ from a lot of bad riding. My hands and my legs move only to the extent necessary to give the least cue possible. So, if we focus in on my hands here, they move only as much as is natural with the horse. They're not going to be completely still because the horse is in motion. There I was steering him a little bit, so I did move my hands. You want to. But if you're just going along and you have your horse set, you want to just maintain. And my legs, unless I need to drive him or steer him with my legs, remain pretty constant. You should ride a little bit like a leaf sits on a branch on a tree. You shift with the breeze as necessary. You shift when the tree sways in the wind, but you're not moving on your own independent of the tree, or in this case, independent of the horse. So you don't get to doing a lot of this or a lot of this, because then things happen that you didn't have in mind. So that's basically correct riding that doesn't get in the way of your horse. Let's look at some typical ways of riding badly. So one thing that I see pretty frequently is people getting off center and off balance. Let's watch what happens with a horse who's, I think, reasonably well trained when you get off center and off balance. So I'm riding along in a normal fashion, but then I start to lose. What does he do? Well, in a way, he was trying to save my life. He came underneath me. So when I swayed over here, he slowed down, came underneath my seat, and he steered in because that's the way my weight and my gaze were going. But maybe the person who's getting off center like that just wants to go straight. They just can't keep themselves straight. Well, that creates a contradictory signal. Now, often, along with that, we have another favorite of mine, and that's the person who loses their stirrup. So, you ride along, you want to be able to drop a stirrup Here, I'll get us lined up a little better. To drop a stirrup and just pick it back up. But what we see is, person loses a stirrup, they do everything but get off the horse to fix it. And the horse reacts to all that movement and things fall apart. So work on recapturing a stirrup when you lose it. Drop a stirrup on purpose and find it. Drop a stirrup, find it, to where you know where you are. Make sure your stirrups are turned. If they're not, twist them, put a broomstick or a digging iron through to where your leathers and fenders twist to the outside, and your stirrups are no longer hanging as they do in a new or unbroken in saddle, parallel to the horse. If your saddle's real stiff and you can't get that done, take it to a saddle repair shop. They can put a twist on it that will hold. They can actually do some things mechanically that will make that work. But that can make a difference, just the way your stirrup hangs. Let's do something else that we see a lot of. So we're riding along. I go to the right here. And we don't lope a lot. This is a new thing. So we're bouncing all over the place. And at some point in this flopping around, my legs go up front. And I go through the dashboard. Now, that's worse on a broke horse. Because one that's broke, when you put your legs forward like that, should stop off your seat. So if you're riding correctly, and you come across, and you just relax your legs, he should come to a halt. But if you do that accidentally, your horse is very likely to shut down, even if he's not trained. And definitely, if you're riding a broke horse and you get that far out of position, he's probably going to say, well, you want to slow down and stop? I'll do that for you. And then you've got a problem. So stabilize yourself. Don't rock forward, don't rock backward. Remain seated throughout the entire performance. So what other sorts of things do we see? Well, when it comes to the use of the legs, we can have what I call the big squeeze. You'll have people who think the way to stay on a horse is to hold on with your knees and your calves and your thighs, and they'll do this. They'll just bear down. And that's what happens when you bear down. And they may strangulate their horse with their hands and keep the horse from running off like that, but that is the signal they're sending. And frankly, that's the signal you want. If you ask your horse like that, they should go forward. Your legs don't need to be squeezing your horse when you ride. They should hang down just like that leaf on the branch, in balance, in sync with your horse, and any pressure should mean something as a cue. Other things that we see, we'll have people say, I'm kicking my horse, but he won't go. And here's what I see them doing. They're going like this. They're just sort of flapping their legs like the wings of a flightless bird. What you do is you engage your seat, you engage your legs, you engage your heel if you need to, and instead of doing this, this is confusing to him. You just ask, and you move forward. So I'm not trying to do an exhaustive explanation of everything and how you do everything right, but I'm showing things that commonly go wrong that you'll want to take the time to work on. So there's the flightless bird, there's the big squeeze. How about the way people back a horse up? That's sometimes is just a terrible thing to see. Now, I'm going to apologize to this guy in advance, Simon. I am sorry. But I'm going to show the way people back up when they want to go a little faster and they want to make sure that sucker backs up. I'd simply call it the brutal backup. Here we go. and I'll write him a note and beg forgiveness. It doesn't take that. These things are pretty sensitive, and doing that doesn't help us at all. Then there's another way to back up that's even more common. So people are riding along, they got a lot of slack in the reins, and they say, let's back up. So they punch themselves in the belly. Now he's broke enough that he feels the slack coming out of the reins, and he'll back, but there, and then they get up there. Shorten your reins, keep your hands out in front of yourself, and back up. But that punch yourself in the guts, all that'll do is get you bruises. Your horse may back up, but he may also. This horse was trying to back up because he thought that's what I wanted, but I believe that he would quit that after a bit if all I did was give him that ineffective signal. So those are some things that come into play. Another one is what I call the unintentional counterbend. There's a legitimate exercise where you counterbend your horse to move their shoulder over and to show them that you can pick up on the outside rein, which is my right rein in this case. And that is a useful thing to do. But what people will do is when they're going to turn their horse around, they'll have this rein short and they'll turn like this. And don't laugh. You see it at horse shows. Instead, keep your horse centered and it becomes a lot more easy. So those are a bunch of different things. Let me look at my notes. I took notes because there were so many things I wanted to talk about. Oh, the kick and grab. Yeah, that's a favorite of mine. We see this all the time. People will say to their horse, go forward. And then in essence, when the horse goes forward, they say, just kidding, and they grab him with their hands. What happens is they ask the horse to go forward. Come on, you're pokey, let's go. Oh my God, oh God, oh my God. Because they got more than they asked for, or they really weren't prepared to go like that. If you're going to ask your horse to go forward, give him the chance to go forward. Don't grab him and strangulate him with your hands and send him that victory. That's hugely frustrating to a horse. So those are a number of things that we see. I'm going to look at my notes one more time because I'm sort of having fun with this, to be honest. No, I think that pretty much covered everything I could think of. I'd sure be interested to know if anybody else out there has any personal favorites. But what you need to do, and this is not intended to be unkind to anybody who's learning to ride or somebody who is a novice rider, but if we improve ourselves, we will definitely improve our horses, we'll improve our communication with the horses, it's going to improve our relationship with the horse. And in the end, you'll have a lot more fun if you have a horse you're on the same page with. You'll be safer, and the horse will be happier. So, as promised, that was some bad riding. I'm now going to take him out in the woods there and wander around a little bit and beg forgiveness. Thanks.